Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Off on Tangents. Myself, Jake. Jake is back after a little
What's
hiatus.
up, guys?
um, yeah,
You
we
missed me, I'm sure.
we're back on the Zoom, and we have an interesting episode to talk about today. We're going to mix it up a little bit and just talk about the possible return of the NBA season and also episodes 7 and 8. What are your thoughts about the Last Dance in the latest episodes, and what we should look forward to in episodes 9 and 10, which is released tonight? I think tonight or tomorrow. So
Yeah, tonight. Oh, it'll be tomorrow for us. Yeah, tomorrow.
yeah. So a few things to talk about, but we wanted to start with the possible return of the NBA season in 2019-2020.
Woo!
Woo! It
Let's
could
do
be
it.
returning. There are talks now. As we understand, Chris Paul, who is the head of the president of the NBA Players Association, spoke on the jump. ESPN the jump about wanting to play again. He did have a players only or superstars only conference with LeBron, Kawhi. I think PG was in that meeting, Russell Westbrook, and they all wanted for the NBA season to return. Um,
Well,
so
they all probably think it's their time to win a championship this year, so
yeah,
of course they all want to come back.
exactly. So I mean, if you talk to a lottery team, you probably have
Yeah.
a different response, about wanting to return.
Did
And
you get like were the people like Devin Booker in on that meeting and were like, nah, let's not start it. Let's just call it a year.
well, would you call Devin Booker a superstar? Oh, nah.
Oh.
Oh, but he's not
I
a
would be,
superstar
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, no, okay, we'll say star. We'll leave it as
Yeah,
star.
star, NBA All Star. There you go. Um, but yeah, so they had this meeting and they all wanted it to come back, the NBA season to come back. And Jake, I just wanted to get your thoughts about the possible return. Now, I understand that look, it's always there's always going to be a risk. Okay, so now it's just a question of mitigating that risk or trying to reduce that risk as much as possible, because we haven't found a cure for this for the coronavirus. So
Mm.
what are the possible changes or that Adam Silver has to consider, or the league in general has to consider uh, before a possible return. Uh,
Oh,
to
well,
the
I guess the main thing that they need to consider, I think some of the different options that they're considering, um, one of the things I've heard is potentially just doing all the games at one location. So
Yep.
to minimize, but in doing so, they'd be minimizing travel between the states. So have them all in the one area to begin with,
Yep.
and that in doing so will minimize the amount of spreading between states. And if it just say one state is particularly bad. I think New York's particularly bad, so just say we avoid home games for New York for the time being. Just that type of thing might work. So
Yep.
um, I think having a centralized sort of one area, the players can all then live within the vicinity and go back and forth from the games there. I think that's probably the most realistic situation. And whether that happens in LA or something, because most players tend to already be living around that sort of area. But
Yep.
um, the other thing that they could be doing, which I don't think anyone likes the sound of, is just playing with no crowds, and especially in the playoff times, I don't think that's very good, um, situation. Like in terms of the home field situation with doing all the games in one place, some teams will be losing their home court advantage, obviously, and also they may be losing some fans won't get to go and travel to see their teams, but at least having some fans being able to go watch the games will be better than no games or no
Yep.
fans in the games. So I think they're some of the types of alternatives that they're looking at. But in terms of the schedule for the season as well, there's a lot of discussion as to whether they're going to come back in and start it straight at the playoffs, or whether they need to, continue with some of the last few games that would have happened to give the players a chance to sort of warm back up rather than just going straight back into playoff basketball. So there's a lot of different things that they'll have to decide on. But
Yeah.
I actually wouldn't mind if it just went straight into playoffs myself. Just looking at the lineups, I actually like the way that the playoffs are sitting at the moment, to be honest, because like you look at Philly on the East and the way that they're sitting at the moment, I think they start off, they're sixth at the moment, and so they'll come against the Celtics in the first round, but they can avoid, at this point in time, they can avoid the Bucks until the Western Conference Finals, so the Eastern Conference Finals, so they can
Yeah.
actually make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
And then on the West, I like the look of the sort of the lineup for the Lakers, and I think the Clippers have a lot harder lineup. So I like where it's sitting. If it went straight into playoffs, I wouldn't actually complain. But
Yeah.
I do think that the players probably do need to warm back into it. If you went straight into playoffs after being off for 2 months, we're probably not going to be getting the best basketball that we could expect, which is what we want in playoffs. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. What's your thoughts on that? Like, would you rather see the rest of the season played out, for instance, or like at least a couple more games, maybe um, between some of the playoff contenders, at least to give them a chance to fix up their playoff seedings or something? Because I know in the West there's a lot of the teams, like probably from the Clippers down to the Mavericks, where a few changes, a few wins or losses could change the whole ordering of the Western Conference. So what would you rather see in that regard?
Well, I would like to. I would like to see. Look, I think we're getting to the point of playing basketball is better than no basketball at all.
Yeah,
So
for
if
sure.
we have no crowds, so be it. At least we have the basketball to play. So
Well, there'll
um,
be crowds online. That's it. Like we're all going to
yeah,
still be watching it from home, aren't we?
yeah. So I look, to answer your question, I would like to see at least get some fitness under their belt. I know they're training; they should be doing their own training because
Yeah, I
remember,
think that a bunch of the teams have this past week have reopened their facilities so that
yeah,
players are coming in and starting to train again. But not even that's only certain teams as well. It's not all the teams across the league.
yeah,
So there will be, in saying that, there's probably some disadvantage as well if there's some playoff team contending teams that aren't able to open their facilities. Is that really fair as well?
yeah. Look, that's dependent on state by state. I think I don't know how it's run in America, but yeah, look, they they should be getting some fitness under their belt in that regard. So I mean, look, 5 6 games, I reckon regular season games to play, and then just head
Yeah.
straight into the playoffs after that. It,
Yeah, maybe make them not even count towards the record. They could just be trial type games,
yeah,
yeah, just non. They don't matter anymore. So because the playoffs are pretty much determined. The teams that are in the playoffs, it's not going to change very much. I don't
yeah,
see the Pelicans or the Spurs or the Portland all of a sudden making their way into the playoffs. So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
that's probably a good idea. Just a few trial type games, and then I would say doing it in the one location. Just say they open it up now. If they made that decision now, all players could start making their way to that location, and everyone could be training. It wouldn't be a state to state sort of basis then of being
yeah,
like, oh, we have to wait till our facilities are open to start training. If
yeah,
they did that, then at least everyone that was involved in the playoffs could be getting out there. So
yeah.
yeah,
On a different note, we've in this shortened season or whatever it is, um, it uh, Shaquille O'Neal has come out and said that there's going to be an asterisk to the NBA champion that eventually wins it. Now, he said, and to put it in context, he said that Tim Duncan's the 1999 Spurs championship, the first ever championship that the Spurs won. He said it didn't count because there was a lockout shortened season. Now,
mm,
that's sort of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, given that they still played the playoffs in 1999.
yeah.
It was just a lockout shortened season, only 50 games
So it was
played.
only the regular season that was affected in that case.
Correct. And he said, "Oh, there's going to be an asterisk to the 2020 champion. Like, you should just cancel it. Yeah, you should just cancel it and
By
start
any
again."
chance, was that the year that the Lakers lost to the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals,
I think it was the
1999?
semifinals. I think it was the
Oh, they lost in the
semifinals.
semi-finals. Yeah. Well,
Now,
either way, they lost. Shaq lost to Tim Duncan in those playoffs, and that explains why he's
yeah, well,
putting that asterisk. He's probably like, oh no, like I doubt he would be arguing for that asterisk to be there if the Lakers had won that year. He would be
well,
arguing the complete opposite, man. He'd be like, oh no, it counts.
exactly.
While everyone else would be saying it doesn't. So
Now,
Shaq,
Tim.
you got 4 rings, Shaq. Shut up.
Yeah, I know. And Tim Duncan has 5. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
and that's probably the reason why as well.
that's
But
probably it. He's like, no, I'm on level.
and I feel like he's so wrong for that because, like, if you're going
Yeah,
to
I
say
don't
that,
agree.
what about LeBron's 21st ever championship that he won in Miami? That was a lockout shortened
Mm,
season as well because they were still negotiating the CBA, between the deal between the owners and the players, and you only had 66 games in that season. So, like,
mm.
are you saying that LeBron's first championship doesn't count either? Like, I don't,
Yeah, it's
you
like
know,
at the end of the day, the players don't control what happens with the season. Like, yeah,
yeah,
everyone's playing. So at the end of the day, regardless of if there's a lockout season, everyone in that competition still plays the same amount of games, right?
yeah,
You still had the exact same fair chance to get that championship. Anyone else could have won the championship that year other than the Spurs, and that lockout wouldn't have provided them any more of a benefit than the Spurs got from it. You know what I mean? It was
correct,
still just a regular season. It's just a shortened season.
yeah,
And in 62 games, doesn't matter. Like after 60 games, you've got a pretty good idea of who the best and the worst teams are in the league. You know what I
correct,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's not like after 50 games you're going to be like, well, nah, the the you know, looking at this year, we're not going to say after 50 games towards the towards 80, we're going to think, oh, Spurs are going to make their way in without a doubt. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like if they had that extra 30 games, it would not make much of a difference because the other teams above them have to be losing those games as well. So I just, no, I don't agree with that at all. I think at the end of the day, whoever wins this year's championship, it would just be probably more important to a lot of the world than any other championship because of the situation that's going on, and everyone will celebrate, and it will be
yeah,
just as important as any other championship ever. And if anything, I think it will be more important with everything that's happened this past year, especially with Kobe's death and everything. I don't see any reason why this year's championship would be less
yeah,
meaningful than any other.
exactly. Well,
Mm.
we'll leave that segment on that note, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about the episode 7 and 8 of the Last Dance. We are nearing the 10-part doco series, and basically this episode 7 and 8 really became more intimate, in the sense that we delve into uh, Michael's. Michael Jordan's father's death, and also his retirement. Now, talk to us, Jake, about the impact of having a mentor and an idol, and to all our dads out there that always influence their sons to play sport and be a mentor. Like, props to you guys. Talk to us about how Michael's dad impacted his 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 character,
Career.
his career. Yeah, his career.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really speak much on how he influenced his character because, like, I don't really know much about. I don't know all that much about the relationship other than from what I've seen in this documentary and from what I've read over the years. They clearly had a very tight relationship. I would think if I was Michael throughout these episodes, if there was this overwhelming feeling of I don't know. I felt almost sad for Michael watching all these episodes because I just felt, wow, like this guy really, he's just a human being who was being made to be a god-like figure by the rest of the world just because he could play basketball really well. And in doing so, he was painted up to be above, more than human, better than everyone else. So every little mistake that he did that was human-like, sorry, he would be dragged down for it so much more because we had these ridiculously high opinions of him. And I would think that if I was in that position, the one person in the world that would have zero bias, zero negative, would only be there to protect me and take care of me would be my father or my mother.
Yep.
And so that to me would be the most important relationship. Or if you had a partner as well, like whether you could be as trusting with a partner if you'd only met them after you became Michael Jordan, you know what I mean? Like if you were Michael Jordan, how would you know that that partner was with you for any other reason than your money? You
Yeah.
know your parents, you know your father is genuinely, well, most of the time at least, you would know your father and you would think that he would be the one person you could trust. So I think being Michael, to have his father with him like that, to have his father there for him would have made such a massive difference in the early part of his careers when he
Yeah.
was coming up and he was hearing all the stuff about, oh, Michael can't win a championship, or like he can't get over that hill, like he's great but he can't get over that hill. And I'm sure his dad was always with him through that, always encouraging him, so that when he finally got over the line, his dad was with him even then. They celebrated together, like he was with him through everything. So I
Yeah.
think that would have been his one figure that he could have relied on through all of that, all of the mess that was going on around him, while everyone else was ridiculing him for not being this godlike figure that we've painted him to be.
Yeah.
He could always rely on his father, and then to lose that would have just been, the final nail in the coffin, as it were, to just be like, I can't handle this. Like
Yeah.
that, and not only that, but the way it happened as well was just like so out of nowhere. This guy was a healthy man. Um, there was no reason for him to just suddenly die. It was so unfair. Like he was just taken from Michael and his family, just
Yeah.
murdered. And yeah, so I just think for all that to happen, it's only fair for Michael to react the way he did. He was in the middle of all this stuff coming out about him gambling. He was just getting things from left, right, and center. It seemed like the more he won, the worse he would cop it from the media. Almost, it's weird. Like by being in the spotlight, you get all the positive, but you also get all the negative. And so when his father died, I think that was just the end, to be like, I need this break. And it makes me, just watching these episodes makes me, as I said, makes me feel for Michael, but also makes me think all the conspiracy theories that we've heard and come up with over time about him retiring at that point because of the gambling and being suspended and all that stuff that you hear. It just makes me think, wow, that must just be complete bullshit speculation that we've made up, because really at the end, like really from watching it, you can see that this was just a man that was going through a tough time and could not get away from anything to
Yeah.
sort of heal. And then his dad dies and he needed to take the time off. And if it wasn't for that 2-year retirement, who knows if he would have, completely burnt out from staying in the league and ended up, retiring even sooner and not winning the latter 3 championships. Like
Yeah.
we never know what would have happened if he hadn't done that. So I think his dad dying was just the nail in the coffin, and he needed to get away from the sport.
Yeah.
And I think as a world, we've sort of made up so many stories to explain why. And at the end of the day, he's just a human being, and anyone else in that situation would probably have made the same decisions.
Yeah. Well, that was a sort of a good segue into the question of the what if. The and
Yeah, oh
you
yeah.
already answered, and I think you already answered it. Like, do you think that he would have won, 8 championships, where
Mm,
the Houston Rockets won those 2 when Michael left? If or to your point, like, do you think he would have burnt out? He needed those 2 years to come back, feel refreshed.
yeah.
And you've answered it, but I wanted to pose it to the viewers. Like, do you think that he would have won the 8 championships, given that what we saw in episode 7? Um, do you think that affects your opinion? Like, it's just a hypothetical, but
Yeah.
we'll never
It's a
know.
good. We never know. Yeah.
But
But it's an interesting thing to think about, because I think a lot of people have that sort of mindset of like, and I, for most of my life, sort of thought, oh, why did he do that? Like in the peak of his career, like, is it like in such a nonchalant sort of way? You just think, oh, why would someone in the middle of that just walk away and cost themselves the chance of being an 8-time championship? But then at the end of the day, it's an unrealistic thought, because that's not what happened in history. History is what happened, and
yeah,
at the end of the day, like there's no changing what happened, and it's just all hypothetical. But
yeah,
yeah, if we were to change, like the chances that he was to get 8 championship in a row, because that all happened, was probably pretty low, because it clearly shows that there was something, all this stuff was happening to make it really unlikely that he was going to get those 8 championships. Like everything was stacking against him.
yeah.
If anything, it should have been unlikely that he even got those 6 championships. So
Mm.
that's pretty amazing in general, like that he got 6 through all of that, because most people probably couldn't come back after that amount of torment and come back and then win a further 3 championships.
Yeah. Well, so in that sense, he retires. He goes to baseball. He spends about 18 months there, and he finds himself rejuvenated, and he's actually enjoying baseball. And actually, he did play that at a young age, before he took up his interest in basketball. Now
Mm.
he returns, uh, based on a little catch up with one of his former teammates, BJ Armstrong, and he ends up playing pickup, one-on-one pickup with him, and then from then on, his return he comes back in the latter part of the 94-95 NBA season. Now he wears the number 45, and for the viewers, he actually wears that number 45 because that's what he used to wear when he was a kid, playing baseball. And you know how much I love a name drop in rap references, and um, in Big Sean's Bounce
Oh
Back,
yeah, yeah.
Big Sean's Bounce Back song, where uh, Big Sean says, "If I lose one, I bounce back like I did 2-3, did with 4-5," and it just dawned on me when Michael's returned with 4-5, like it's a double entendre, but he's basically saying, uh, 2-3, Michael Jordan's first number, basketball number, comes back with 4-5, but then he also comes back with that. Also means that his 4th and 5th championship is all. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I mean. So 2-3. So at that point, he comes back,
Yeah,
wins the
3.
4th, and then wins the 5th,
Yeah.
and then obviously he couldn't put the 6th one in. But I thought that
Mm.
was a great line by Big Sean, though.
Yeah,
So
it is a good line. Yeah.
if anyone, listens to "Bounce Back" by Big Sean, that's what he's referring to.
Think of Michael while you do.
Yeah, think of Michael. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. Now in that season, they lose to Orlando. It was quite unfortunate, but Michael didn't have his legs under him, and you can see that in the episode.
Mm.
But yeah, no, in episodes 8, we talk about we see that their road to the 4th championship. Now, um, in this 4th championship, they pretty much form one of the best teams of all time, and they actually had the record for the best NBA regular season, with a 72-10 record at the end of it. Now that was broken, as you know, by the Golden State Warriors, the
Mm-mm.
73-9 team in 2016. But this one had the record for about 20 years. So we just talk to us about like their road, or the 4th championship, with the Seattle Supersonics, who actually really had a good play in Gary Payton and Sean Kemp.
Mm.
And for those that don't know, Sean Kemp is a heavily underrated dunker. So if you actually want to watch a couple of NBA highlights of
Good
Sean Kemp,
highlight reel, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
he's known as the Rain Man, and like his dunks were insanely. He would do
Mm.
like double reverses and a couple of windmill dunks, and he was his dunking ability was just one of the best.
We
Probably,
don't. You just all you see in a highlight reel nowadays 3-point shots.
yeah, it's
You don't get
weird.
those dunks like you just don't like when you look at the 1990s highlight reels. It's just like dunk after dunk after dunk of
Yeah,
explosive dunks, and
and you
nowadays
sort of
it's just 3 points.
you sort of can like taunt him after. Um,
Yeah,
you sort
because
of
it's
can,
you're right in
yeah,
the face for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays you can't do that. It's like fuck, you get a technical.
Or you just walk down the field like taunting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
It's more hurtful getting a 3 scored on you though, that's for sure.
yeah. Now, did you watch that part where Michael was laughing at Gary Payton, where Gary said like after 3-0, George
Oh
Karl,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the coach of the Supersonics at the time, George decides to put Gary Payton on Michael Jordan. They ended up winning the next 2 games, and what do you again a hypothetical? What do you think of that? Like Michael Jordan laughing because Gary Payton
Oh,
was
at the video of is this when he laughs at the video of Gary Payton saying he reckons they would have beaten him if he had marked him earlier? Is that what you're
no,
referring to?
yeah,
Gary
yeah.
Payton saying if I was put on Michael earlier in the series, I reckon we could have won that series, and then Michael reads that and he's laughing about it. Is
Well,
that what you're referring to?
yeah, but he didn't actually say it would have won. They would have
He
won the
thinks it
series.
could have been a different outcome.
Yeah, well,
He
no,
didn't.
he didn't
Yeah.
even say that. He said, "Oh, look, I don't know if it would have changed the outcome, but
Oh,
he,
yeah,
yeah, but he did say like it
yeah.
would have that move should have been made earlier by George Karl.
Yeah.
But look,
I mean, obviously the move should have been made earlier, but again, you're dealing with a hypothetical situation.
yeah,
It's like Michael won the championship, so
yeah,
that's probably why Michael's laughing. It's probably like, like, well, it doesn't matter if the outcome could have been different because 20 years later, the outcome stays the same. You can't change it, and yeah, it is. I don't know. It does come across a little bit arrogant the way Michael sort of talks about a lot of the other
yeah,
players. I find it hard to hear him talk about other players and not get this sense of arrogance in a way that he knew he was better than everyone else, and
yeah,
he's not shy on saying he's like. So I sort of got that sense when Gary was saying that Michael was laughing because it's like this guy has nothing on me. So it can come across as a bit arrogant, but at the end of the day, it is hypothetical what Gary's saying, and Michael won the championship, so he I guess he earned the right to laugh in that situation. But I do feel like Michael had, and rightly so, obviously, because most people will say the same thing. But he did have the idea that like as soon as someone come up and would have a good game against him, he'd make this like create this personal vendetta against them to
yeah,
destroy that person.
yeah,
And it's like but like in doing so, he clearly created this competitive edge against everyone or some shit. It's like he had to create that for himself. Um, but yeah, in doing that, he comes across as sort of like this guy who's like he's like I'm better than everyone, but at
yeah.
the end of the day, he was. So
Well, when like the stats actually show that when he was guarded by Gary Payton, he actually had more turnovers. Michael had more turnovers, less points, in that series. So I don't know. There could be some truth to it. Like had George Karl made the move at the very start to, you know, have Gary guarding Michael, it could. I think it could have been a very different series. And
could have been a different series. It might have had the same outcome, but it could have been tighter. For instance, like
Game 7,
it could have not gone to 3-0, for instance, in the first
yeah,
3 games.
yeah,
Like how do you let a series get to 3-0 before
and
you decide I'm gonna switch up on who's guarding Michael, for instance?
exactly,
Like that to me, it's dumb to say after 3 games, oh, the outcome. Like it's like, yeah, if I was Gary Payton, I would be thinking 20 years later, I'd be thinking if I had been put on him earlier, could it have been a different outcome? Like there's no harm in thinking that. Obviously, you can't change it,
yeah,
but if you then went on to win the next 2 games when you were switched on to him, you would not help but feel like, wow, if I was put on him after game 1 when we were down 1-0 and then we won these 2 games, we'd be up 2-1. Like it. it baffles me that a coach would allow the series to go into absolute dead end before he decided to make some changes in that regard.
Correct.
Like, you're not coming back from no team comes back from 3-0. So at that point, he may as well have just rolled over and let the championship be done with. If at that point, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, you can see moves made. Like, I mean, to more recently, like in last year's playoffs, in the Eastern Conference Finals, you know, if the Bucks are up 2-0, what does Nick Nurse do? He makes the adjustment to put Kawhi Leonard onto Giannis Antetokounmpo, you know, instead of Pascal guarding him. So, like, and
and they
look what
go
happened there.
4-0 after
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
gentleman's
exactly.
sweep.
You're right.
So, you
But
know,
what if he'd waited until game 3 to make that decision? 3-0. It's a different
yeah,
hurdle to get over, you know, like mentally
yeah.
and physically.
Exactly. Like, I mean, I would love to see a team come back from 3-0 down just to
Yeah, I'm
rewrite
sure in
history.
history we will, but it's not going to be something that you see regularly. It'll be something that we
Yeah,
see once
yeah,
or twice
yeah,
throughout history, because it's just such a you're so far gone at that point that you you know, like, you don't have that lifeline. All it takes is one game to be over.
yeah,
Whereas when you're down, the Raptors, because they made that switch after being down 2-0, even if they had lost one more game, they could afford that loss.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So they could afford to play around and just say they'd switched. They made that switch, right, for Kawhi on Antetokounmpo, and it didn't work. Then they would still have an extra game to play with that, and
yeah,
be like, all right, well, that didn't work. Let's do this. But it worked, and they won their 4 games, and they
yeah,
didn't end up losing another game. You know, but
yeah,
like, it's too late to make that, to play around with that when you're down 3-0. Obviously, you're going to make some changes if you're down 3-0, but the odds of you coming back by that point are low. You need to be making those decisions after you're down 2-0 latest, probably.
correct. Yeah. We'll leave it there for episode 11. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll obviously bring out more content, and we love that. You know, there are some viewers responding to some of our questions and our polls. We'll definitely put some polls up in these episodes. And just do little snippets, just so you guys can just interact with us and
How
drop us
many
a comment.
championships would Jordan have won if he hadn't retired? That will be a poll.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll leave
I'll
it there.
go
But
up and say 3.
true. Yeah, no. So no. But thanks, guys. Jake, you have any final words?
Nah, just like, I know at the moment, it sort of feels like in Australia we're getting to a point where we're like, oh, we can all go outside again, and I just want
Yeah,
everyone to know, you know, we're not at the end of this epidemic yet, so stay smart with it.
correct.
Because I already went out yesterday to get some groceries and noticed that Thurul was pumping again the first
Yeah,
day that it's been allowed to be open again, and it's like, oh, are we gonna undo all the good work we've done for the past few months
yeah,
within a couple of weeks if we're not smart? So stay safe out there, everyone, and keep your social distancing up. You know, like, we're moving forward, but we can easily fall right back in a bad ditch if we're not careful. So
yeah.
I want to get back out there, but I want to do it in a safe way to ensure that we don't end up back inside again for another 6 months. So
Yeah.
stay
All right.
safe out there, guys.
Yeah. Stay safe. All right. Take care, guys. Peace.
Peace.